because prediction markets are essentially those parallel objects that are mostly independent from each other. At the very least, one thing you can do very, very simply in Linera is to run one prediction market in a separate microchain. You get this scaling factor out of the box. This offering that we're putting together, people are going to join for the liquidity and the distribution. They're going to stay for the tech.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the ACC Podcast from ACC Ventures. As always, I'm your host, Steven, and today I'm joined once again by Mathieu Baudet, the founder of Linera. When we last spoke, Linera was introducing a new way to scale blockchains through something called microchains, which give every user their own lightweight chain built for real-time interaction. But today, we're diving into that architecture and where it's now headed, which is real-time prediction markets.
Hey Stephen, yes, great to be back. Doing good here in New York. Thanks for having me.
Great to welcome you back on the show. I want to dive into just a little bit of a recap. This is now the second installment of a conversation that I've had with Mathieu here. The previous episode, of course, is on the channel. We will drop that in the description below. Since that video, catch us up on what in the world has been going on with Linera.
Yeah, what's new with Linera? Look, we have launched another testnet that for the first time had exciting, like a wallet connect. So we're able to, for the first time, create apps that have this sort of end-to-end user experience that we like, where it's like basically almost no friction. Anybody, thanks to this embedded wallet that we partner with called Dynamic, anybody can come and use the Linera apps with like an email address or any existing wallet in practice. And so that was a pretty exciting moment to launch this together with a portal and a demo app, like with some puzzles. Actually, we just launched a few more puzzles to keep people entertained, and excited about the app. So that was a good moment. A couple of months ago, what else can I say? We just tons of improvements on the infrastructure side that. To power this testnet. We are in particular getting the lowest latency possible. Oh, of course, I should mention that we did start working, of course, with a number of partners. Yeah, of course, across the and in the recent months, including a very ambitious hybrid decentralized exchange with a really innovative architecture that was also discussed in a light paper. If people have been following some of our own, weekly broadcasts, and maybe I'll get into that a bit later.
Yeah, lots of partnerships, lots of integrations you just mentioned there. So I want to at least touch on the testnet. Were there any surprises from builders in the testnet? Anyone using Linera in ways that you didn't expect?
Well, I think one of the things that we discovered is kind of what I just said. Basically, it's our own way to use microchains. Initially comes from, because the tech is initially motivated initially comes from a research project that was a payment system. And so for a payment system, and we kept that architecture inside Linera. And for a payment system in Linera, the way you do it is you use what we call the microchains of the users. So we have this sort of one-way transfers between users and transferring an asset from the chain of a user to the chain of another user. And this is really what the defining feature that we built first, because that's kind of really the most original thing, the fact that you have a payment system without any settlement chain, without any bottleneck, and so that can scale to any number, really. And we have started talking about some of our internal benchmarks reaching 1 million TPS, and we will put actually out there some details in the coming weeks. But so that was this natural, I would say, prioritization or natural focus on payments. From there we built. We learned that there are also other ways, that to build applications on Linera, and one of them was to use kind of traditional app chains. So it's been a very interesting journey for us to suddenly like realize, okay, but you can also use Linera in a sort of normal way with a number of app chains, and maybe you can use them as shards. Like, so if you want to scale out your application, you will use several, like any number of app chains, but kind of to handle the traffic on your application, and then that creates some interesting architectural problems. And in fact, we found that we needed to optimize the protocol a little bit for that use case. So that's something we did recently.
So the core is still microchains and real-time user experience,
Right.
but what is Linera shifting its vision towards?
Yeah, and so prediction market is something that we obviously knew about, and I mean, it's a very exciting part of DeFi where users can make bets on I mean, let's say binary outcomes in most cases, and so I think what's been a surprise recently and really motivated us to spend more and more times on prediction market applications is simply the success of that, and the fact that this has the potential to be finally, to put a consumer app, a decentralized consumer application in the hands of a lot of people in the world, and so it's been very natural for us. We've been kind of waiting for a consumer application to come around and show us the way in a way. Like we were like we've built historically we built this very big engine from the bottom up, like with the potential to power millions of users active in parallel, interacting with the app, and expecting the real-time user experience that you would expect from a Web2 application, except decentralized. And so with prediction markets, we're seeing that being really put to good use, and the opportunity for Linera to make a big difference. And so the example where that's starting really like itching me is this idea that with Linera you can imagine a million of users watching the same sport event in parallel and making some bets on the different outcomes, and only with Linera you can expect that when people press upvote or downvote some market on their phone, only with Linera we can really guarantee that every time they press the button, there's a tiny block that's going to be created, no matter what, under 200 milliseconds, and no matter how many users are participating to this event. And so that vision really validates what we've built, and so we've been pretty excited about this opportunity really to put Linera technology to good use.
That's what I think is the main point here. And I'm seeing a lot of major shifts, not only in Linera here, but among a few other decentralized networks that are really shifting from a blockchain performance story to specific narratives that do a great job of showcasing and, as you said, validating the success of really what this particular technology achieves. In this case, of course, Linera. So I think some of the main prediction markets that our viewers would be familiar with involve Kalshi, which I think is more centralized, but Polymarket is much more blockchain oriented. I believe is entirely on the blockchain. And you mentioned there just then, Mathieu, about Linera making a difference here. So I guess obviously Kalshi and Polymarket have been doing numbers, have had a lot of success. So I think that an ordinary user may hear you say something like Linera is going to come in and make a difference here, and kind of misunderstand, this idea, because this concept, if it isn't broken, then don't fix it. Could you go into a little bit of what difference will Linera make in this market?
Yeah, and so the vision is that so we have some big players, and they probably doing a good job at what they're doing, but we see also tons of teams trying to and coming up with original ideas, maybe an app that is specialized, that is approaching prediction market from a special angle, maybe like the way there are lots of different parameters, whether you allow people to create any kind of market or only specific ones on a particular theme that are curated, whether you want people to have a social feed and interact with each other, or more traditional website. Also in general, there's a lot of degrees of freedom in the design, and we're seeing people are coming in and providing those different themes and those different experiments, and wanting to make to make a room for them, right? So to create a market for the app, and so when those builders come, they have a number of problems. They need the liquidity. They need the distribution, and of course they need a tech that works really well, and that's what we want to provide. We want to help people come and build an app in a way that's much simpler and is guaranteed to be extremely scalable at the end. So what I like to say is, like, people come to Linera for, this offering that we're putting together. People are going to join for the liquidity and the distribution, and then they're going to stay for the tech.
Yeah, I love those kind of dual statements there, what they come for and then what they stay for. So I guess when it comes to almost rewinding back to when you and I last spoke, what other things were you considering having Linera kind of focus on to validate and to showcase why Linera has such profound technology here, especially for building these apps?
I don't think we are really deprioritizing anything. What we've learned is that so we build. It's the same infrastructure that we've always built, and that infrastructure has definitely a potential in many domains. We like DeepIn, where you can have fleets of devices interacting with their own microchain in parallel, which makes a lot of sense to. So it makes a lot of sense to use Linera as a foundation for DeepIn projects. Social apps, decentralized social apps. There's no shortage of ideas of things you can build on Linera. But what we're seeing nowadays is that for layer one to be successful, it's not enough to just say, "Hey, look, we have a really nice tech. You can do all those things. Come in and build." You really need to be more active, helping the builders compete with potentially the builders of other ecosystems. And build the best business possible, and so for that to happen, you at some point you need to be good at helping them, and so that's how you end up specializing in a particular category of builder that have specific needs, and you've basically prepared everything for them to be able to help them in the most efficient way.
How was this brought to your attention? Was this something that the builders kind of brought to you, or was this something that kind of Linera proactively noticed?
For sure, and of course, what I explained about helping builders with the liquidity and the distribution. Of course, it also helps that the tech is especially well suited for production markets, and in particular, there's a basic idea where because production markets are essentially those parallel objects that are mostly independent from each other. So at the very least, one thing you can do very, very simply in Linera is to run one prediction market in a separate microchain, each of them in a separate microchain, and you get this scaling factor out of the box. That will immediately make your market way faster than any competing layer one infrastructure could make you. So that's obviously there's also there's a really, really good fit on the technical side that was part of the motivation for us, and that really shows the opportunity.
Yeah, there's just a great opportunity here in the world of prediction markets for people to build on top of Linera. When you say real time, kind of what does this mean? And again, I already had a conversation with you about some of this in the previous episode, but throwing it back over to you again, what are these microchains? How are they built in such a way that allows these prediction markets really to shine what Linera is building?
So obviously real time can mean a number of things. So here we are on the web. So what we mean is essentially having those real-time notifications, having notifications that go as fast as the network, and that's something that Linera supports natively. So the ability to whenever the ability to interact with an application both ways. So you can push transactions to the application, but the application can also push notifications back at you, and all of that is supported inside the Linera infrastructure itself. And then the application being typically distributed across all the microchains of Linera. So meaning that, for instance, if you have a payment application, there's a small ledger in every user chain. So the application has a small there's a piece of state in every microchain, right? And the application then coordinates across all those chains. Now, what it means for the users when they use a Linera application, if they receive assets, or the application has some there's a change, like some events like a prediction market is being resolved or something like that. Inside Linera, we have all the mechanisms to directly push a notification to your front end. So as a user, it really feels like a Web 2 application. Nowadays, we even banking websites, they are reactive. They will react. They will give you notifications or updates, refresh the page in real time when something is happening in the backend. And it's kind of weird that we are the only one blockchain. I mean, from my point of view, it was really missing in Web3, and so it's really natural for when you build apps to want to have a support for this kind of push notifications, the ability for transactions to talk to another user and basically send them a message, have their UI being refreshed to display new data, to display maybe new assets that they just received, and all of that in real time. So all of that at the speed of the network.
So I understand, of course, with the idea of these microchains is each app gets its own chain, so therefore there is no congestion in the event of many transactions.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you're describing is called, I mean, actually not specific to Linera. It's called an app chain. So a chain for one application, and that's something that has been proposed in other systems. So like maybe it's a parachain, or it's a subnet in Avalanche. Where Linera really shines is the flexibility to do that, but also to give chance to individual users. So you can structure your applications to live in one chain if you want, but the Linera way to do that is in fact to structure applications so that it has some pieces of state in some specific chains, but also in the chains of the users. And this is where Linera really starts shining. And I was mentioning the example of a payment system that, in the case of Linera, so only uses user chains. But in general, what we want is the users to have their own chain, because that's a gateway for the rest of the system, and that's precisely where we're going to push we'll send the messages when you want to create a notification that I was mentioning a moment ago. So really this this notion of user chain. We have also different kinds of chains. So in general, we have this kind of flexibility to configure to create chains as many as we want in first place. So an application can have one, two, or several different chains that are running in parallel. So this is, you could very well use that to implement some form of sharding inside the application, so that you really multiply the throughput of the application. But you can also use chains that are managed by the users themselves. That's for storing assets, like I said, acting as a gateway for the rest of the system, storing user-specific state, or also if you want to push work to the users. So if there's an expensive operation like verifying a ZK proof, a zero-knowledge proof, typically as part of an application, typically the application would try to make that sort of heavy transaction happen more, heavy computation happen more on the user side, on the side of the user chain, rather than in the middle of an app chain. And so that's really how. So we, in general, if I had to summarize, I'd say in Linera applications, they have the flexibility to manage bottlenecks, to manage the congestion, and avoid avoid unnecessary congestion by using several parallel chains, including user chains whenever appropriate. And we're really providing the building blocks for applications to be able to do that and coordinate themselves using a number of primitives. So asynchronous messages is one of them, but there are other things that we developed that are some of them are like pretty unique, like the notion of event streams, for instance, between chains that allow us to see if you were creating a social network, you would have a notion. Essentially, what we're saying is you can have your social feed on chain and have the users subscribe to each other, and that's already taken care of inside Linera. So yeah, that's I think the benefits and the what we're providing here is like something that goes way beyond typical app chains,
I'm sure there's much more we could talk about that, but I want to kind of keep the shift on the whole prediction markets to really just emphasize Linera and what the tech is doing to change basically how people will interact on these prediction markets. But of course, just to emphasize that again, this is just one use case that Linera believes needs the improvement, needs to have it kind of more efficient, more faster because of the real time need of transacting and making these trades according to that real time event taking place.
Yeah, and I maybe I can add a little more, a few words on this. So the what's interesting about prediction markets is obviously that people want that to be fast. It's supposed to be entertaining, so in the first place. And so not only when you make a bid, you want to see the result, the confirmation that your bid has been taken into account immediately as as a normal application. And also when the market is settled, we're seeing that sometimes centralized platforms take hours, if not days, to pay the rewards, and that's kind of frustrating for players. Sometimes there's also a lack of transparency, and overall that kind of hurts the user experience. So one of the things that also people are the reason why people are really excited about decentralized prediction markets is really that decentralization is really solving real problems for the users, and so adding transparency to the settlement, allowing them to be faster yet still very secure, and just making the app better, more entertaining for the users. Not to mention also other aspects of decentralization that we love, the just the ability to create those standards and compose the apps together. And essentially, once you have a prediction market, it could be used as an oracle for other financial primitives. So people are already looking at having like perpetuals on top of prediction markets, or the opposite, prediction markets that talk about cryptocurrencies that are otherwise managed by other systems or other smart contracts. So it's just like amazing. Once you are on chain, it's just amazing how much freedom you have for builders. How much freedom builders have to compose things together in unexpected ways, as opposed to a centralized system.
Yeah, and so I guess maybe even fast forwarding, year, 5 years, however long the timeline has to be to fit this question here. What does the kind of vision look like in the coming years, and how does Linera kind of glue it all together?
Yeah, I mean, we since the beginning we've built Linera as a different layer one that has special abilities and is not meant to replace existing layer ones. Like we're not building an Ethereum killer or in any way. We are providing this layer of real time interactions and scalability that we think is very important for consumer applications. In particular, prediction markets. And then, so down the road, the vision is that obviously there will be bridges from Linera to other systems. Obviously, stable coins could be native to Linera or imported via a bridge. And what we're going to see is also the benefits of Linera in terms of like providing very fast bridges with other chains, something that or very fast oracles to read the state of our other chains, and that's going
Yeah.
to be very important for prediction markets.
Yeah. So again, just keeping the focus on prediction markets, but thinking a little bit more maybe philosophically here. I want to quote something that was recently shared from the Linera blog, and it's a direct quote
Mm-hmm.
which says, "When latency disappears, prediction markets stop being side bets and start becoming a live collective intelligence layer for the world." So I think that really touches on the ideas of oracles and resolution and this concept of truth machine. And I just want to hear from your perspective just
Right.
how this cannot be understated, the importance of ensuring that all of this is validated, but
Right.
also that it's done in real time, and touching on this idea of this live collective intelligence layer for the world. That's a really profound statement.
Yeah, I mean, so I think what's really exciting about prediction markets is that obviously we're very happy to see a consumer app, something that's going to finally bring blockchain technology in every household potentially, but also these are good apps. They are fun. They Some people may also try to make a living if they are more on the trading side, and then they are useful. So that's also one thing that's really interesting, is that they are really good aggregators of beliefs coming
Yeah.
from the different participants to a prediction market. And I think there was this moment during the US election where Polymarket was able to show that they had a better forecast, or a higher quality forecast than some of the pools out there, kind of by definition, because because their market for the US election was very hot, very liquid, and lots of people were participating, including people who had read all the polls out there. So it's kind of by a theorem of economy. Basically, it was at least as good as any of the polls out there. So that was something that was very, very interesting, and people noticed that it was, like I said, like a really good aggregation tool, and at the end of the day, a really good forecasting tool.
Yeah, forecasting tool is the exact word for it. And all the polling, and even, people are making bets on the weather forecast itself. And the idea that you can kind of bring in your own information, individual user's information, and you're having
All right.
a personalized, hand on what the
Uh,
forecast is of
yeah,
whatever it is, whether it's an election. Yeah.
if your family has been living in next to a mountain for generations, and that they have the knowledge that when the clouds are a specific shape on top of the mountain, is gonna rain like 80% of the time there. Then and that's, let's say, that's very true. Like that's, then they will be able to play the corresponding market, and maybe beat the computers from the
Yeah.
national weather. you know?
Yeah.
So, and then that's one example where you have like this sort of tribal knowledge that would be incorporated in the market, and that otherwise would have stayed basically in one in one place.
Yeah, no, it's a really unique and, I guess, profound way that people are now being able to monetize almost their information or their knowledge.
And this is where I think there's an opportunity for infrastructure provider like us, or solution providers like us, to come up with a set of recommendations, uh, even maybe some tooling down the road using AI or something, to help operators, market prediction market operators, to help them rate, maybe detect that a market is not sound, like it's something that is
Yeah.
too easy to game, or like outright suspicious. That's something that otherwise every prediction market app out there has to kind of find by themselves, and maybe that's not what they want to do. They maybe prefer to find time on the distribution and the user experience for the experience for the users, rather than these legal considerations or risk management considerations.
Yeah, well, good luck to you on that realm of the conversation, because that is not only probably a challenging one to focus on from a a builder's perspective, but also it involves some political and some kind of subjective views about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're a user, I mean, users are going to be educated down the road. I mean, some, at least a good chunk of them, are going to learn, perhaps the hard way, that if there's a market that is
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
outcome depends on a single person to do
right,
something
yeah.
at a given time, and and is completely public in the open, and that person might very well just do the thing in the market and participate to it. So people will probably see that, okay, some markets are like just um, yeah, suspicious basically, or not that interesting, or you just should stay away from them. But right now, of course, we're in a temporary. Of course, now because everything is new, it's quite possible that you would find people to take that kind of bets, and think that, oh, everybody's is nice. But
Yeah, thank you for bringing that insight into the conversation. I'm
mm,
laughing at myself as you're talking about this, reminding myself, like, yes, if a user makes a high risk bet on something that one individual could have some subjective influence over, then maybe it's best to not involve yourself in a prediction market that has some entity very much responsible for the outcome of that, unlike the weather or unlike some other events. But that's good perspective to remind yourself that not all prediction markets, not all markets should be bet on, should be put at your own risk, for lack of a better term. So I kind of moving away from that, but still kind of in the same realm of the conversation. Let's say somebody disagrees with the result. Is there a process to challenge or dispute that on chain? Like, how do you avoid falling back into the centralized resolution?
right, I mean, I think it's actually tied to a similar idea. So if you prediction market is talking about an outcome in the real world, that's kind of by definition. So you say, hey, the title of the New York Times or New York Times tomorrow is going to be this. It's you're talking about by definition the New York Times is centralized. So so there's no way to do better than having basically you kind of like so yeah, so the what but yeah, taking a step back, so what we can do for builders inside Linera is providing the SDK, providing the building blocks for them to create their own interconnection with either existing Oracle solutions, or to build their own Oracle committees with a particular set of incentives that suit their domain best. But so I would say in the case of Oracle, so we will we'll have access to oracles that exist. As we grow the set of partners, there's no limitation to what kind of oracles Linera can interact with. But on top of that, I think also people will appreciate the flexibility, thanks to this layer of notifications, native notifications that I was mentioning earlier. The ability for a Linera application to also directly talk to users. So some of them could be part of an Oracle committee, and maybe they will have special devices running a Linera microchain on them. And so with Linera, you can use Linera as a transparent messaging system to coordinate across committees or in any way you want. That you will have that for free inside Linera. No need to build more infrastructure on the side for that. So I think it's gonna be very valuable also down the road for markets that want to have good control on oracles.
So some listeners will also know about MEV, front running, sandwiching, etc. So does the microchain model help to avoid that?
To a point, I mean, so I guess same answer. So we providing some building blocks that may not be available in other systems, and can certainly help. And so in this case, I'm thinking about timestamps. Um, the idea is then and MEV is obviously a vast subject, and you kind of need to look at one particular application and study, like see where the MEV can come from and what you can do. But let's say that you're building an exchange on Linera. Then the way we suggest to do that is to have the assets, have the user use their user chain as usual to store assets that are not active. And then when they want to actually make a bid, this is where they're going to create a transaction, like essentially create a block that contains a transaction in their chain, and then that transaction is going to talk to the exchange. So there's this extra step, or this first step. Like when I said that the user chain earlier, I was saying the user chain acts as a gateway to the rest of the system. So whenever, as a user, you want to interact with an app chain, for instance, that is somewhere else in the system, you start by creating a block in your chain. By doing that, that's how you start making a bid, and you start moving the assets to the order book so that they can be held there until maybe they match, or something, or the bid is canceled, and then you will get them back. This extra step, one thing that's really nice, it also gives you a timestamp, a secure timestamp for free. So when I start interacting with an app, my microchain is creating this tiny block. In that block, there is a timestamp. That timestamp is forwarded through with the assets, together with the assets forwarded to the order book, for instance, or the M. And so that's one of the building blocks that I think will help a lot fight MEV, because now you seeing the order book and you seeing all those trades, and if the order book is not fair and allows front running, you will see that some timestamps are not in the right order. And so because everything is transparent, at the very least the community could point this out. And then I think there's probably a bit of research to do, but down the road, the way I see order books is that there will be rules and constraints on how the order book can, in which order the order book can handle the bids of the users. So you could use this timestamp to create sort of priority lanes and make sure that you within reasons you have something like first come first serve for a given price to fight for running.
So all right, so let's say that I'm sold. I want to build on Linera. I want to build a prediction market. So let's say this weekend I wanted to build a small prediction market. What would that actually look like? Is there a template or a starter kit that builders could go out on Linera and get going?
Yeah, there is. So I was mentioning app chains, user chains, all those ways to use microchains to create applications that scale horizontally, or that have less congestion than in other systems. So this is all described in our developer manual. So on linera.dev, people can come and see for themselves. So there's some diagrams, and it's an interesting read. And there's also a light paper on DeFi if you want to go deeper into what a decentralized exchange could look like in Linera or prediction market. And then to put that to good use, I would encourage people to join our ongoing buildathon. So we have a multi-week online hackathon that is running right now, and if I'm not mistaken, it's going to run until beginning of next year. And so there's going to be a number of waves. We just finished the first one, and the prices are increasing, so it's definitely not too late to join. And so I would encourage people to tap into our Discord, Telegram to learn more, and start building.
Yeah, and I know last time you mentioned a web client framework. What's live today that makes it easier to build front ends?
Yeah, so that part is fully live and integrated with the embedded wallet dynamic that I was mentioning earlier. So you have really this unique ability to create Web3, like reactive Web3 applications, applications that can refresh whenever, for instance, you receive an asset, or in general the applications sends you a message. There's a number of demos also that you can find and see for yourself, how fast it is. I was tweeting recently about X402 payments, what they would look like in Linera, and we basically we have the payment system obviously completely nailed by now. Since that was the initial motivation of the entire framework, and it's really fast. It's like like comfortably under a second from the UI of the sender to the UI of the receiver. Something that I think is pretty unique, and you will not find that kind of numbers. People don't really talk about UI to UI latency. They talk about block finality. They talk about block time. All those latency numbers are usually only one-sided. They talk only about one of the two users of the transfer. And so Linera, because we have a layer of notification, we can really look at what it means that the time it takes between the moment I click and the moment you see the assets in your display.
Yeah. And you touch on a lot of important things there, especially when it comes to somebody who might be more interested in quote unquote picking winners here. So we're all, I'm going to just make the assumption here that we're all here to, as you said, make a difference to improve the way that things have been done. And clearly blockchain has showcased that ever since the beginning with Bitcoin, and we could get lost in conversation about that. I know, Matthew, that you are a builder, not a marketer, but you are the founder of Linera. So how do you think one should go about standing out in this market these days in Q4 of 2025?
Obviously, for us, it helps to have very solid technical foundation and solid infrastructure. And what we learn along the way is what I was explaining a bit earlier, that the importance of also maybe specializing and addressing a specific market, something that was not considered like that important before. And nowadays we're seeing that to be competitive, you also need to specialize on particular segment of users or builders, and then really try to serve them the best you can.
I love that. Quick, easy, nicely packaged there. So now I'm remembering about what you had mentioned earlier about the decentralized hybrid exchanges, I believe. Let's touch on that before we go into a final lightning round of some questions here.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I mean, I guess this is part also the why now, why looking at prediction market now on for Linera. We're seeing that more and more DeFi applications are hybrid decentralized. Meaning that they have a component that is centralized, and then they use a blockchain for transparency and to settle everything and guarantee the transparency and the secure the guaranteeing the security of the assets and the composability, and essentially recovering a lot most of the benefits of decentralization. The and so this notion of hybrid decentralized app has been popularized lately, in particular by Polymarket. And so the first time I looked at that, I was like, oh wow, if you're going to build a hybrid decentralized app, well, you should use Linera for the on-chain settlement, because Linera will, if you do, Linera will, because you can use as many parallel chains for settlement as you want in Linera will basically never be the bottleneck of your system. So you end up having a centralized application. So you got the performance of the centralized application, and then you got the transparency and the benefits of decentralization without the bottlenecks. So it's really the best of both worlds. And so one of the haha moments where I realized, oh wow, hybrid decentralization for Linera is really interesting. And that's one of the ways you implement perp dexes, and also I think in some cases production markets could benefit from a hybrid decentralized architecture.
Yeah. All right. So, kind of closing the episode here before I throw the mic back over to you to share your final pieces and anything that we may have missed. A bit of a fun lightning round here for you to fill in the blanks on some of the topics that we discussed today. So, I'm just going to kind of throw them in, substituting. Okay. With a blank, throwing it over to you. So, Matthew, a prediction market is what?
It's a form of market with a binary outcome that allows you to bet on, like I said, like a particular outcome, whether it's going to happen or not. And interestingly, you can also trade your bet, which is also like very fun.
Right. Yeah, we didn't even touch on some of that. So the next one is this: the most misunderstood thing about scaling real-time apps is what?
Okay, all right. So that's a vast topic, and I've been thinking about this a lot. So I would say first the difference between L2 confirmation and L1 confirmation. So you can build real-time infrastructure in L2, but that creates a lot of questions when you get a confirmation in L2. It's actually not really final, and I think people don't necessarily understand or appreciate the difference between L2 confirmation and L1 confirmation, especially when it comes to composing systems together. Then the second thing is, in fact, what I just described a moment ago, the difference between block time or finality time and this UI to UI end-to-end latency. So user to user latency is something that is really underappreciated, and is very, in fact, although that's actually all that matters for users, because users don't see blocks. That's the
right.
So
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. All right. So here's this one: real time means blank milliseconds to finality.
So currently, the testnet is around 200 milliseconds, which is pretty fast, especially given that it's just a testnet. So we haven't started optimizing or asking our validators to optimize things, like optimize the hardware or the network connections, as some of the production blockchains are doing these days. And in fact, when we look at the block time of some blockchains, not the finality time, but the block time, we find that sometimes they are below that number, and that gives us a direction. And so I think real time maybe is going to mean probably could be as low as 100 or somewhere between 50 and 100 milliseconds down the road when the dust settles and all the optimization have been made.
Love that answer. As far as I'm concerned, anything other than 1 second is so fast that it seems immediate, but there's always that faster kind of like approach towards infinity as the curve kind of flattens.
There's also a difference between users, like human users, and agents, right? That or trading automata that definitely see a difference between 1 second and 100 milliseconds.
Absolutely. Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like it's really going to matter. If I'm paying for rent through the blockchain, then as long as the payment is sent before rent is due, of course, then no big deal. We aren't concerned about it. But whenever it comes to a whole world of not just humans, but also AI agents coming together, trying to make money in these markets through predictions, through basically being faster to having that information, bringing it to the trade, to the market, that's when speed really matters. So last one here for you, Matthew, here, a little bit more encouraging for the builders, especially there's this hackathon you mentioned that's going on. So the first killer app on Linera will be what?
There will be many prediction markets that are killer apps.
Well, that really wraps up our conversation nicely there. It's like we haven't been talking about it for the whole time, but I really hope, speaking to the viewers here, that this was a really insightful episode. So Matthew, throwing the microphone over to you, any other things you want to touch on, feel free to take as much time as you need. Final words for builders, partners, or even skeptics of prediction markets.
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing special. I just want to say thank you for having me here. Thanks for all the great questions. And for the builders out there, we have the buildathon coming, and we are excited to see what you're going to build.
Spectacular. Well, Matthew, it's always a pleasure. Thanks again for coming back on the show. We'll see you in the next one, and all the best to Linera and G microchain.
G microchains. Thanks, Steven.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.